Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I heard that I'm last, so we're in the home stretch, and I actually think it's perfect because what I want to talk about today is inspiration and hope for the future. I'm Laura Sturr, and I have led operations at Amazon Games for the past 5 years. And like many of you, I have a long history in the games industry. It all started in a cubicle next to my husband, who's here today. Hi, sweetie. And some fun facts about me. For the past 25 years, I've held roles at PlayStation, THQ, Sony Online Entertainment, and Robot Cash before coming to Amazon Games. I honestly can't imagine doing anything else. And throughout it all, I've been fortunate to work across many aspects of gaming, from cultivating new IP to pioneering new genres, platforms, and business models, to overseeing large-scale publishing operations. As someone who's worked on and witnessed countless trials, successes, and failures as the industry has evolved over the years, with each new moment, whether a massive win or total misfire, as the old adage goes, if we're not moving forward, we're standing still. And we all know there are insights all around us, and I'm just as fortunate for the failures as I am the successes of my career. They really help us to refine our judgment, our instincts. And in an industry where you have to get everything right every time, learning is just so imperative. I've also come to appreciate that any one of our insights is as a fraction as powerful as the ones that we learn as a team. And so this is my disclaimer that while these are my own thoughts and opinions, the work is credited to many. And none of it would have been possible without the incredible teams that I've had the pleasure to work with and lead over the years. So we're staring down the barrel of the PowerPoint heard around the world. Here's looking at you, Matthew Ball. And we need to do some serious retrospectives and evaluation of our path forward to unlock that next chapter of growth for our industry, our craft, the place that we all get to call home. And now, the beauty is that there are more gamers than ever, 5 generations of them to be exact, who all have a voracious appetite to be entertained, but they want to be entertained differently. And so we're going to need some big ideas to charter the next course. But I think if we look back, we'll find a lot of relevance on how to shape the future too. The word innovation often gets thrown around in our industry like it's the ultimate goal. We attach it to everything, from the games and the content we create, to our development practices, as well as the services we operate to support them, even how we market our games. And it is an admirable goal to constantly innovate, and at Amazon, it's actually one of our leadership principles. But innovation can come in the form of both reinvention and reimagination. In reality, success doesn't always require that we deliver something brand new. And the things that we've done before may be still very relevant, but they need reimagining, reformatting, repackaging in order to find new audiences and provide these new growth vectors. And sometimes we just need to look back at what we've already created and ask ourselves, how do we assemble these pieces differently? And knowing when to apply one or the other, reimagination or reinvention, can be really tricky. Players and communities have certain expectations. There's an unwritten social contract, and sometimes too much reinvention can be a bridge too far. And I'll share some of those examples here today. So if you're like me, you get caught up in the day-to-day, we're driving towards goals and metrics, and all the while trying to keep our players happy and chasing the bottom line. But in all that, it is easy to lose sight of the fact that what you're working on really does have staying power. It can be an inspiration to others for decades to come, and can be reimagined and reinvented in so many new ways. So throughout my career, calibrating against these 2 points has been a journey to identify that sweet spot, and occasionally still get it wrong. So let's talk about the power of past ideas. Being first to market is thrilling, and it can breed an entire well of possibilities. But it's risky and so hard to anticipate how audiences will respond. And breaking through has never been harder. Steam reported that more than 18,000 games were released on the platform in 2024 alone. The cost of production has grown at astronomical rates, and the magic can often take years to crystallize and may never truly materialize. Reinvention can come in new genres, new business models, and marketing campaigns, usually powered by new technology. And I've been fortunate in my career to have been behind many games that have both pioneered new ideas and those that have elevated older ideas to stratospheric new heights. And right now, it kind of feels like the industry's out of ideas because we've hyper-optimized against just a few business models. And it feels like there's just like this relief valve that needs to be released. The most successful, innovative projects I've been involved in are those where we truly put the work in to understand the psychology of our players. It's part of what Mark was sharing in his talk today too, and knowing your audience and how they think and what their expectations are. And back in my time at Sony, I'm pretty sure we invented the first incarnation of early access packs, which we debuted in EverQuest 2 in 2004. And I did fact check that, but it's possible that somebody is hallucinating. So according to ChatGPT, it's true. We knew players had been waiting for years, and in an MMO, it's all about being first. It was a huge unlock in our go-to-market. And now look at the power of it today. 20 years later, it's often used go-to-market strategy and an entire category of games on Steam. But at the time, it was just an inventive way to match our offerings with player motivation and to operationally scale. Another industry-first moment was in 2009, also while I was at Sony. We earned a Guinness World Record for orchestrating the very first simultaneous live and virtual concert. We had the Dares, think boy band, perform live at E3 while their avatars simultaneously appeared online in free realms. For us, it was just about connecting the real world to the virtual world in a novel way that would pave the way for other virtual spaces in the future. And yes, players responded. Flash forward to today, and Fortnite's recent remix, the finale, raked in 14 million concurrent viewers. That's a pretty incredible feat. Or look at Roblox, which has also seen a huge success by making its platform a stage for big artists like Lil Nas X and 21 Pilots. Virtual concerts are now commonplace. They connect Gen Z and Gen Alpha to an IP in a very relatable way. So this is an idea that was born 15 years ago, and it still works, only now it's been taken to incredible new heights with modern thinking on the back of a juggernaut game. And our industry is so brilliant and bright at taking kernels of ideas and reimagining them in fresh and interesting ways. At Sony, we pioneered the battle royale genre with the genius of Brendan Green, along with the construct of what an invitational meant and with influencers competing in tournaments in real life as well as online. And that kept us at the top of the charts until there were new market entrants that made the burgeoning genre better, more refined, and more mass market to be the world's largest genre today. No joke, for a while I had my kids thinking that Blue Hole Games, the creators of PUBG, was called Butthole Games. I was so frustrated that we had lost our player base, but we learned so much in that process. And I was told to say sorry to any PUBG devs that may be in the audience. But today, developers and publishers are sitting on billions of dollars worth of assets. There are countless beloved game characters, game mechanics, modes, mods, production pipelines in existence today that are ripe to be reimagined. And if we're no longer chasing fidelity, now what? The next standalone genres will come out of Roblox and UEFN and be made by small developers. But if you look at what is at the top of the charts right now, they're actually low-fidelity MMOs. Another great example of gameplay that has stood the test of time, but now it's been reimagined through the lens of a new, younger audience. This incredible content lays the foundation for what I see as the next phase of growth, where we bring fresh perspectives to reimagine and modernize for both new and existing audiences. My next point is about the power of player motivation and really understanding your audience. Obviously, this is everything. I look back to around 2010. We converted Sony Online Entertainment's entire catalog from paid subscription to free-to-play, thinking it would open up new audiences to our games. We always got feedback from our players that the subscription was limiting our growth, and fans always wanted us to be placing Super Bowl ads so they had more players to play with. A good thing we didn't listen to everything that they wanted. But we quickly learned that going free to play wasn't necessarily the right call for older MMOs. There wasn't a lot of newfound liquidity on the UA front. Our games had already established their core bases, what we now know as the golden cohort, except for one, DC Universe Online. And we learned that that license and the more mass market appeal had a huge impact on our business model choice, and ultimately was a success. But regardless, we were at the forefront of taking a popular model in Asia and applying it to the West. We learned a lot, like the concept of cohorting, motivation, segmentation, which was not in vogue in the games industry at all at the time. We also learned a lot about in-game monetization, and we're at the forefront of understanding player needs, the necessity of a social contract, how to take an infinite supply of digital goods and how that compares and contrasts with a finite supply of physical goods. And so here's a good example of actually where we took the reinvention too far. We were desperate to win players back to H1Z1 after PUBG and Fortnite had launched. And so we tried to get really creative. Enter Auto Royale. We thought, how could we take the core gameplay and apply it to something so new that it would attract enough attention and bring back our virality? Auto Royale was a simple concept. It was basically duos with one person as the driver and one as the gunner, and the last vehicle standing wins. Brilliant, right? Well, not so much. It was a great concept until you think about the motivation of a Battle Royale player. Battle Royale players are competitive first and foremost. Collaboration is optional or secondary at best to the main objective. And here we were putting two strangers in a car together and made them care about each other first and foremost. And players don't necessarily want to collaborate with strangers in a competitive game. What the players really wanted was just an OG season. So we missed the mark, and we took that innovation too far. And still, to this day, if I ever get pitched a game where it's online only, collaboration is required, and the game mechanics are brand new, my spidey sense goes off really hard. Like, we have to really think about the type of game design and what the audience is expecting out of that. But the challenge remains that we often default to a one-size-fits-all mentality. One game that can satisfy the styles and the preferences of all players within its total addressable market. Because let's face it, they're so expensive and they take so long to make. And so we develop by catering to the common denominator. And my theory is that people prefer to engage with the same games in entirely different ways. And it's become increasingly and more important to enable them to do so on their terms. And in particular for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And we can look towards other forms of entertainment for inspiration. So if you're an NFL fan, you've probably watched Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime Video. And I look at the innovation that they're demonstrating right now and how it all centers on viewer cohorting and how you can take that very same broadcast and make it unique across multiple types of fans and generations. For example, Prime Video's X-Ray stream gives real-time access to live stats and fan polls. And then there's Prime Vision that takes the die-hard fans even deeper into the action with a data-driven experience, with overlays showing location, speed, and acceleration data for each player. Or you can even just sit and listen as if you were in the stadium with the ambient sound. And all of these different feeds take that same core experience from the old days of cable and now allow that same investment to scale proportionately. So imagine the possibilities if we applied this model to gaming. Instead of a pivot or a right turn, if you will, imagine if our production processes in the future could allow for these deeper levels of customization, layers, nuances, and allow for micro communities to start to form around them. So many developers and publishers are well poised to take advantage of this, and I definitely think it will be part of our new growth vectors. All right, on to my third point, which is the power of purpose-built publishing. So my background is working in large global publishers, and if your goal is to scale, you have to be incredibly thoughtful about what your portfolio needs to achieve that. And one of our hardest learnings came more recently. When I joined Amazon Games in 2019, in fact, close to when much of our current leadership team, the operational model was putting way too much of the burden for success on each individual game team. without the infrastructure or support and systems to allow it to scale effectively. This organizational model may have worked in the past, shorter game life cycles, but not with a portfolio of live service games, which bring a whole new set of requirements, technology, to-dos, and not to mention the complex regulatory environment that we all face, and our commitment to accessibility and player trust and safety. The team that's in place today, including myself, saw this so clearly. And so our first order of business was really to re-envision how the organization should work and then build that out. And instead of putting the onus on the developers, we insulated them so that they could focus on making great games, first and foremost. So, and on the publishing side, we built technology, marketing infrastructure in order to create that long-term support. And it takes time to do that, right? Like that muscle over the last few years has evolved, and we've really built out a world-class publishing organization, essentially going from nothing in 2020 to 2 large-scale successes with New World in September of 21, and to Lost Ark in February of 22, and Throne and Liberty in the fall of 24. I knew we were moving in the right direction when Lost Ark launched, and we scaled to 800,000 concurrents in 17 minutes. That was pretty awesome. I remember crying in my driveway that day. We now have world-class ML technology, bot or not detection, trust and safety, automation, entitlement and inventory systems, and a whole lot of expertise. And in addition to the 3 live games, Amazon Games now has King of Meat on the runway, and so many others that will be able to leverage these powerful tools. The simple fact is it's easy to over or under rotate a publishing operation, and it can be very expensive. And you really have to think about your portfolio and the genre needs and what that future investment profile looks like. What are those common denominators amongst all of the games? And because the stakes are high, you create redundancies and checks and balances so that when one team learns, every subsequent team benefits from that. It is way too hard to make games right now. And imagine a future state where tech is much more out of the box, a world where every company isn't forced to problem solve for every tool and every system. So in conclusion, I believe that we've been so focused on the what. It's a very linear way of thinking. You build a game, and then you move on, you make a sequel. But what if our next chapter is about how these 5 generations will play? We need to reimagine or reinvent format, length, discovery, medium, and get away from a store-based mentality. What if games are pushed to players and discovered on the platforms they're already on, like TikTok, Discord, and Twitch? And what can we learn from the Facebook social game era? Let's meet players where they're at. And we've glimpsed at a future where possibilities only achievable via the unique capabilities of the cloud. And so I believe more games will be designed to enable wholly unique experiences versus this one-size-fits-all mentality or standard. And that way we can create much deeper levels of engagement. Do all games need to be 50-hour epics? Or will shorter, more novel, focused experience is proved to be an effective way to take these games to different mediums where there are not entrenched player expectations? How do remakes and nostalgia play a role? Does something need to be dusted off from 1989? That's my nod to Taylor. Had to fit her in somewhere. So I believe we'll see a whole new standalone genres emerge out of the user-generated content spaces, and they'll usher in those next hot genres. I see us finding ingenious new ways to improve our publishing and development processes and practices so that we can deliver games faster and for less, with almost real-time community feedback loops. How are we developing games for micro-communities and social graphs in entirely new ways? And while our industry may have been hit hard over the last few years, and that'll likely, unfortunately, persist for a bit, I do believe it is on the cusp of a major renaissance, a revival where growth isn't only going to come from constantly delivering entirely new ideas or swinging for that home run with every single project. Our creativity, fueled by new technology, will allow us to deliver games that offer really unique experiences to players that are more interconnected than ever. and make them available to play where players want them. And I love this industry. When it's at its best and its finest, it is literally pure magic. I can't wait to see what we dream up next. Thank you so much.